Metropolitan Emergency Coordination Center, Status Report. Date, October 15th, 2025. Time, 14:30 hours. Reporting Officer, Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Classification, Routine Operations. The afternoon shift briefing concluded with standard protocol reviews. All monitoring systems operational within normal parameters. Radiation detection network shows baseline readings across all metropolitan sectors. No active threats requiring immediate response protocols. Current staffing levels maintain full operational capacity. Esme Ford completed weekly inventory of emergency supply distribution points throughout the metropolitan area. Supply levels at 94% capacity across all designated emergency centers. Water reserves at full capacity. Medical supplies distributed according to standard rotation schedule. Food distribution networks operating at normal efficiency levels. Maddox Rain filed security patrol reports from overnight operations. Standard perimeter checks completed without incident. Access controls to sensitive areas functioning properly. Communication systems tested and verified operational. No unusual activity reported from field units. The backup generator maintenance schedule shows completion of quarterly inspections next week. Engineering team confirmed all redundant power systems operational. Emergency fuel reserves at 98% capacity. Backup communication systems tested and verified. The underground facility access points were inspected and secured according to protocol. Radiation monitoring equipment calibration completed this morning. All Geiger counters showing normal background radiation levels. Environmental sensors confirm air quality within acceptable parameters. Water quality monitoring systems operational. Soil contamination detectors functioning normally. Emergency supply cache locations verified through routine inspection. Cache Alpha contains 30 days of provisions for 200 personnel. Cache Beta maintains 45 days of medical supplies and water purification equipment. Cache Gamma houses specialized equipment including radiation detection gear and protective equipment. All cache locations secured and access codes current. The potassium iodide inventory shows full stock levels. Current supplies sufficient for metropolitan population distribution if required. Storage conditions maintained at optimal levels. Expiration dates tracked and rotation schedule current. Distribution protocols remain ready for immediate implementation. Communication networks tested throughout the morning. Primary radio systems operational. Backup communication arrays functional. Satellite uplinks confirmed. Internet connectivity stable. Emergency broadcast capabilities verified. All systems prepared for immediate activation if required. Staff training completion rates at 96% for current quarter. Radiation safety protocols training completed by all personnel. Emergency evacuation procedures updated and practiced. Supply distribution protocols reviewed and confirmed. Security response training maintained at required levels. Weather monitoring systems show normal atmospheric conditions. No severe weather warnings active. Air quality monitoring within acceptable ranges. Temperature and humidity levels normal. Wind patterns stable. No environmental factors requiring emergency protocols. The Coordination Center maintains full operational readiness. All essential systems functional. Personnel at required levels. Training current. Equipment operational. Supply levels adequate. Security measures in place. Federal coordination networks remain online. State emergency management communications active. Local agency coordination functioning normally. Interagency communication protocols tested and verified. Reporting procedures current and operational. Emergency response vehicle fleet at full readiness. Fuel levels at capacity. Maintenance schedules current. Equipment inspections completed. Communications equipment functional. Medical supplies stocked. All vehicles prepared for immediate deployment. Supply distribution centers throughout the metropolitan area report normal operations. Inventory levels maintained. Delivery schedules current. Security measures in place. Personnel staffing adéquat. Communication systems operational. The afternoon operations brief covered standard emergency scenarios. Protocol reviews completed. Response time targets maintained. Resource allocation plans current. Personnel assignments confirmed. Communication procedures verified. Environmental monitoring continues showing normal baseline readings. Air quality sensors operational. Water monitoring systems functional. Soil testing equipment verified. Radiation detection network maintaining continuous monitoring. All environmental parameters within normal ranges. Emergency shelter facilities maintain readiness status. Capacity calculations current. Supply allocations verified. Staffing assignments confirmed. Security protocols in place. Communication systems operational. All facilities prepared for immediate activation. The Metropolitan Emergency Response Network operates at full capacity. All coordination centers online. Communication links verified. Resource sharing agreements current. Personnel exchange programs active. Joint training exercises scheduled. Standard operating procedures remain current. All protocols reviewed and updated. Training materials distributed. Personnel certification maintenue. Equipment specifications verified. Response protocols ready for immediate implementation. Federal Emergency Management Coordination shows normal status. No elevated threat levels reported. Standard monitoring protocols active. Communication networks functional. Resource allocation systems operational. No special directives issued. End of shift approaching with all systems operational. Evening crew briefed and ready. Transition protocols prepared. Communication systems will maintain continuous monitoring. All personnel prepared for immediate response if conditions change. The Coordination Center maintains full operational readiness for all standard emergency scenarios. Personnel trained and equipped. Systems operational and tested. Resources available and accessible. Communication networks functional. Emergency response capabilities at maximum readiness. Status summary. All monitoring systems operational. Supply levels at optimal capacity. Personnel training current. Communication networks functional. Emergency response capabilities ready. No active threats detected. Standard operations continuing. Next scheduled reports. 1800 hours, evening shift status. 2200 hours, overnight operations brief. 6 o'clock hours, morning readiness assessment. Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Metropolitan Emergency Coordination Center. Metropolitan Emergency Coordination Center, Priority Status Report. Date, October 15th, 2025. Time, 1845 hours. Reporting Officer, Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Classification, Elevated Monitoring. Anomalous radiation readings detected from northeastern metropolitan sectors beginning at 1720 hours. Radiation Detection Station ND07 recorded initial spike of 0.8 microsieverts per hour, elevated from baseline 0.1 microsieverts. Station ND12 confirms similar readings at 1735 hours. Station ND03 showing gradual increase to 0.6 microsieverts per hour as of current report time. Geiger counter calibration procedures initiated immediately upon detection of anomalous readings. All detection equipment verified operational through standard calibration protocol. Backup detection systems activated to confirm readings. Environmental monitoring sensors showing consistent elevation in northeastern sector radiation levels. Communication disruptions reported with Federal Emergency Management Networks beginning at 1750 hours. Primary satellite uplink intermittent. Backup communication arrays experiencing signal degradation. Attempted contact with Regional Emergency Operations Center unsuccessful after 3 attempts. Local agency coordination networks remain functional. Esme Ford reports supply delivery delays from northeastern distribution centers. Scheduled delivery from Sector N7 failed to arrive at designated time. Supply truck from Sector N12 reported overdue by 2 hours. Communication attempts with supply depot supervisors unsuccessful. Backup supply routes from southern sectors remain operational. Maddox Rain documented increased military vehicle movement on northeastern access routes beginning at 1630 hours. Convoy of 12 vehicles observed on Route 87 northbound. Second convoy of 18 vehicles recorded on Interstate 495 at 1715 hours. Military aircraft activity increased over northeastern airspace. Standard civilian traffic patterns disrupted on major northeastern arteries. The potassium iodide inventory verification completed in response to elevated radiation readings. Current stock levels confirmed at 50,000 doses. Storage facility security verified. Distribution protocols reviewed for immediate implementation capability. Medical staff briefed on potassium iodide administration procedures. Environmental monitoring systems expanded to include additional northeastern sensor stations. Air quality monitoring shows particulate increase in northeastern atmospheric readings. Wind pattern analysis indicates northeastern air mass movement toward metropolitan area. Estimated arrival time of atmospheric disturbance calculated at 2200 hours. Federal coordination attempts yielded partial information through secondary channels. Northeast Regional Emergency Center reported operational status unknown. State Emergency Management Agency confirmed elevated alert status. No official threat assessment received through standard channels. Emergency broadcast networks show no federal alerts issued. Radiation detection equipment positioned for enhanced northeastern monitoring. Mobile detection units deployed to perimeter monitoring stations. Additional Geiger counters distributed to field teams. Continuous monitoring protocols implemented for northeastern sectors. Real-time data transmission established from all monitoring points. Esme Ford initiated preliminary emergency supply assessment procedures. Cache Alpha accessibility confirmed through security check. Cache Beta medical supplies inventory verified current. Cache Gamma specialized equipment ready for immediate deployment. Emergency supply distribution protocols prepared for potential activation. Communication systems analysis reveals interference patterns consistent with electromagnetic disturbance. Radio frequency spectrum showing abnormal activity in northeastern directions. Backup communication frequencies tested and confirmed operational. Emergency communication protocols prepared for implementation. Maddox Rain established enhanced security monitoring for northeastern approach routes. Additional patrol units assigned to perimeter observation. Access control points reinforced with additional personnel. Security cameras focused on northeastern entry points. Civilian traffic monitoring increased on all northeastern routes. The underground facility access verification completed as precautionary measure. Access codes confirmed current and operational. Ventilation systems tested and functional. Emergency power systems verified. Structural integrity inspection completed. Facility prepared for potential occupancy. Radiation monitoring data analysis shows consistent northeastern source pattern. Readings indicate potential contamination source approximately 35 kilometers northeast of metropolitan center. Dispersion pattern modeling suggests atmospheric transport mechanism. Contamination levels increasing at rate of 0.1 microsieverts per hour. Emergency shelter preparation protocols initiated as precautionary measure. Shelter capacity calculations reviewed for northeastern population displacement. Supply allocation plans updated for potential increased demand. Staffing requirements assessed for enhanced operations. Communication systems verified for shelter coordination. Weather monitoring shows wind patterns favoring southwestern transport from northeastern areas. Atmospheric conditions stable for next 12 hours. Precipitation probability low, reducing contamination transport risk. Temperature inversion layer present, potentially affecting contamination dispersion patterns. Personnel briefing completed for all coordination center staff. Radiation safety protocols reviewed. Emergency response procedures confirmed. Communication procedures for elevated alert status implemented. All personnel prepared for potential operational escalation. Supply distribution network assessment shows northeastern region experiencing disruption. 7 distribution centers reporting delayed or missed deliveries. Communication with northeastern suppliers intermittent. Alternative supply routes identified and activated. Emergency procurement procedures prepared for implementation. Federal emergency communication networks attempted contact every 30 minutes. Partial connection established at 1830 hours before signal loss. Brief transmission mentioned northeastern incident before communication failure. No official directives received through federal channels. Radiation protection equipment inventory verified complete. Personal protective equipment available for all coordination center personnel. Decontamination supplies stocked and accessible. Radiation detection equipment operational and calibrated. Emergency medical supplies prepared for radiation exposure treatment. The coordination center maintains elevated operational status. All monitoring systems operational with enhanced northeastern focus. Personnel at full readiness. Supply systems prepared for increased demand. Security measures enhanced. Communication networks functional with backup protocols active. Northeastern metropolitan sectors showing continued radiation level elevation. Current readings indicate ongoing contamination source. Dispersion patterns suggest atmospheric transport continuing. No official threat assessment available through federal channels. Local monitoring capability maintaining continue surveillance. Emergency response vehicle fleet prepared for potential deployment. Radiation detection equipment installed in mobile units. Communication systems verified operational. Medical supplies enhanced for potential radiation exposure response. Fuel reserves at full capacity for extended operations. Status summary. Northeastern radiation readings elevated and increasing. Communication disruptions with federal networks. Supply delivery delays from northeastern sectors. Military vehicle activity increased significantly. Emergency protocols elevated to enhanced monitoring. Potassium iodide supplies verified and ready. Immediate action items. Continue northeastern radiation monitoring. Attempt federal communication restoration. Prepare emergency supply distribution protocols. Monitor military activity patterns. Maintain enhanced security posture. Next scheduled reports. 2200 hours, atmospheric contamination assessment. 2 o'clock hours, overnight monitoring status. 6 o'clock hours, situation evaluation and response planning. Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Metropolitan Emergency Coordination Center. Emergency Management Report, Metropolitan Coordination Center. Filed by Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Timestamp, 1427 hours. Classification, operational priority. The radiation detection grid shows consistent elevation across 17 monitoring stations in the northeastern sectors. Baseline readings established at 0.12 microsieverts per hour yesterday now registered between 2.4 and 8.7 microsieverts across the affected zone. The pattern indicates a dispersing plume rather than localized contamination. I've initiated contact protocols with the Regional Nuclear Emergency Response Team. Standard communication channels through the Federal Emergency Management Network remain non-responsive. Backup satellite communication equipment activated per Protocol 7 guidelines. The automated emergency broadcast system continues cycling the same alert message without updated information or specific threat parameters. Esme Ford has completed the initial resource assessment for potential mass evacuation scenarios. Current inventory supports 2,400 individuals for 72 hours using standard emergency ration protocols. Extended shelter requirements would necessitate reducing allocation to 60% of recommended daily intake. Water reserves calculated at 48,000 gallons, sufficient for standard consumption by 1,600 individuals for 30 days, or 3,200 individuals for 15 days, assuming emergency rationing procedures. The backup communication array in Building C requires manual activation using the underground access tunnel system. Maintenance records indicate the tunnel network connects to the emergency supply depot, the auxiliary power station, and the classified equipment storage facility beneath the courthouse. Access codes are stored in the secure filing system, Section Delta 7, Emergency Protocol Documentation. Maddox Rain reports unusual military vehicle movement along Highway 15 and increased helicopter traffic from the direction of the contaminated zone. Standard identification protocols unsuccessful due to radio interference. Visual confirmation shows vehicles configured for hazardous material response operations. Perimeter security has been established around the coordination center using standard lockdown procedures. The radiation monitoring equipment requires recalibration every 6 hours during elevated readings to maintain accuracy. Current supply of calibration standards sufficient for 14 days of continuous operation. Backup detection equipment stored in the underground facility includes 2 Geiger-Müller counters and 1 gamma spectroscopy unit. Equipment specifications indicate operational capability in conditions up to 100 microsieverts per hour. I've accessed the emergency shelter protocols for radiation exposure events. Standard procedures require immediate distribution of potassium iodide tablets to all personnel exposed to radioactive iodine contamination. Current inventory shows 180 tablets in the medical supply cabinet, sufficient for 18 individuals for 10 days using recommended dosing schedules. Additional supplies are cataloged in the emergency depot accessible through the tunnel system. Esme Ford confirms that the radiation detection readings exceed the threshold for mandatory evacuation recommendations. Protective action guidelines indicate immediate evacuation for readings above 10 microsieverts per hour. Current projections based on wind patterns and decay calculations suggest the contamination plume will reach our facility within 18 to 24 hours. The emergency power systems have been tested and confirmed operational. Backup generators provide 72-hour continuous operation for essential systems including radiation monitoring, communication equipment, and air filtration systems. Fuel reserves support extended operation for up to 1 week with power conservation protocols implemented. Maddox Rain has established communication with 3 evacuation centers within the 50-mile radius. Center Alpha reports capacity for 800 individuals with current supplies supporting operations for 5 days. Center Bravo indicates 1,200 capacity with 3-day supply reserves. Center Charlie remains non-responsive to communication attempts. The atmospheric monitoring data indicates wind patterns shifting from northeastern to southwestern direction, accelerating the contamination dispersal toward populated areas. Meteorological forecasts predict continued southwestern winds for the next 48-hour period. This pattern places the coordination center directly in the projected contamination path. I've initiated the emergency notification sequence for all personnel currently off duty. Standard recall procedures require all emergency response staff to report within 2 hours of notification. Current staffing levels at 60% of full operational capacity. Critical positions filled with backup personnel activated per emergency staffing protocols. The radiation safety equipment stored in the underground facility includes 12 full-body protective suits rated for gamma radiation exposure up to 50 microsieverts per hour. Suit inventory includes self-contained breathing apparatus with 4-hour operational capacity per unit. Additional respiratory protection equipment available in quantities sufficient for 36 individuals. Esme Ford has calculated transportation requirements for mass evacuation operations. Available emergency vehicles support movement of 400 individuals per convoy cycle. Total evacuation of the immediate area would require 6 convoy cycles assuming standard loading protocols and no vehicle breakdowns or route obstructions. The secure communication system in the underground facility remains operational with direct satellite uplink capability. Emergency communication protocols allow priority access to federal coordination networks and military command structures. Access requires dual key authorization using codes stored in separate secure locations. Maddox Rain confirms that civilian population in the outer districts has begun unauthorized evacuation attempts. Traffic monitoring systems show increased vehicle density on major evacuation routes. Standard traffic management protocols insufficient for current volume levels. Emergency traffic control personnel deployed to critical intersections. Current threat assessment indicates escalating radiation hazard requiring immediate implementation of enhanced protective measures for all coordination center personnel. Recommended actions include facility lockdown, activation of air filtration systems, and preparation for potential extended shelter operations. All personnel advised to remain within the facility until further threat assessment completed. Emergency Management Report, Metropolitan Coordination Center. Filed by Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Timestamp, 1645 hours. Classification, Critical Operations. Emergency Alert System activated at 1612 hours with Presidential Authorization Code, confirmed through federal verification protocols. Official confirmation received. Multiple nuclear detonations occurred in northeastern metropolitan areas at 11:30 hours. Martial law declared effective immediately across 12 state regions. All civilian authorities operating under military command structure until further notice. The emergency broadcast transmission provides specific threat parameters. Primary detonation sites confirmed at 3 northeastern cities within 150-mile radius of our facility. Estimated yield calculations indicate 15 kiloton devices based on initial damage assessments. Radioactive fallout plume tracking shows contamination moving southwest at 12 miles per hour with current wind patterns. I've activated Protocol 9 emergency response procedures per federal directive. All coordination center personnel recalled to stations. Emergency staffing protocols implemented with 12-hour operational shifts. Communication networks switched to military frequency allocations using emergency broadcast authentication codes provided in the official transmission. Radiation plume modeling data received through Federal Emergency Network indicates contamination arrival at our facility within 18 hours. Projected radiation levels range from 25 to 85 microsieverts per hour, depending on weather pattern changes. Current meteorological forecasts show continued southwestern wind direction with increasing velocity expected overnight. Esme Ford has initiated emergency supply distribution to designated evacuation centers. Transportation assets allocated according to federal priority guidelines. Center Alpha receiving 2,400 emergency ration packs and 1,800 gallons of potable water. Center Bravo allocated 3,600 ration packs and 2,700 gallons of water reserves. Medical supplies distributed including 240 potassium iodide tablets and basic radiation exposure treatment materials. The Martial Law Declaration activates military coordination protocols for all emergency response operations. Standard civilian evacuation procedures superseded by military command directives. All personnel required to maintain operational positions unless specifically authorized for evacuation by military command authority. Maddox Rain reports increased civilian panic throughout the metropolitan area. Highway systems experiencing complete gridlock with abandonment of vehicles blocking evacuation routes. Military checkpoints established at major intersection points with authorization required for passage beyond contamination zone boundaries. Civilian compliance with evacuation orders approximately 40% based on traffic monitoring data. Federal Emergency Network provides updated resource allocation guidelines. Priority distribution to emergency response personnel, medical facilities, and military command structures. Civilian population advised to shelter in place until organized evacuation procedures implemented. Unauthorized movement outside designated safe zones prohibited under martial law authority. The contamination zone boundaries have been officially established using radiation monitoring data from federal assets. Zone 1 encompasses areas with readings above 100 microsieverts per hour requiring immediate evacuation. Zone 2 covers areas between 10 and 100 microsieverts per hour with shelter-in-place directives. Zone 3 includes areas below 10 microsieverts per hour designated as temporary safe zones. I've received orders to maintain coordination center operations as regional emergency command post until evacuation authorization received. Essential personnel limited to 12 individuals with all non-essential staff evacuated to Center Bravo. Air filtration systems activated to positive pressure configuration. External ventilation sealed per radiation containment protocols. Esme Ford confirms resource status for extended shelter operations. Food supplies sufficient for 12 personnel for 14 days using emergency ration protocols. Water reserves adequate for 21 days assuming conservation measures implemented. Medical supplies include radiation exposure treatment materials for 30 days of operations. Military communication networks provide updated threat assessment data. Additional detonations reported in southeastern regions requiring expansion of contamination monitoring to 200-mile radius. Federal emergency response assets deployed to primary impact zones. Regional coordination centers designated as backup command structures for federal operations. The emergency power systems have been switched to conservation mode, extending operational capacity to 12 days continuous operation. Backup fuel supplies allocated through military logistics networks with resupply scheduled every 72 hours, weather permitting. Generator maintenance schedules adjusted for extended continuous operation requirements. Maddox Rain has established security perimeter around coordination center using military protocols. Civilian access restricted to emergency response personnel with proper authorization. Security checkpoints positioned at all facility entrances with radiation detection equipment for personnel screening. Emergency lockdown procedures activated preventing unauthorized entry or exit. Federal Coordination Network reports transportation infrastructure severely compromised throughout contaminated regions. Railway systems non-operational due to electromagnetic pulse effects. Major highway systems blocked by abandoned vehicles and debris. Military assets required for all personnel movement operations within affected zones. The official evacuation timeline indicates organized civilian evacuation beginning 72 hours after initial detonation. Military transport assets prioritized for emergency response personnel and critical infrastructure workers. Civilian population advised to maintain shelter positions until transportation assets become available through military coordination. I've implemented radiation safety protocols for all coordination center personnel. Potassium iodide distribution completed according to federal dosing guidelines. Radiation monitoring equipment activated for continuous personnel exposure tracking. Protective equipment prepared for potential evacuation operations when authorized by military command. Current operational status: Coordination Center sealed and operating under federal emergency protocols. Personnel limited to essential functions supporting regional emergency response operations. Communication maintained with federal command networks and operational evacuation centers. Radiation monitoring indicates contamination arrival estimated at 6 o'clock hours tomorrow, requiring enhanced protective measures for all personnel. Contamination zone established. Emergency Coordination Center. Status report 0847 hours. Radiation levels at monitoring stations 7 through 12 now exceed 500 roentgens per hour. The contamination plume has accelerated beyond our initial projections. Wind patterns shifted overnight, pulling the radioactive cloud directly over the outer residential districts 3 hours ahead of schedule. I'm switching all personnel to survival protocols effective immediately. The emergency broadcast system is transmitting automated warnings, but our primary communication array went offline at 0630 hours. Electromagnetic interference from the blast zone is disrupting all radio frequencies above 30 MHz. We're operating on backup systems only. Resource status update: Esme Ford reporting. The situation has deteriorated rapidly. Panic buying depleted emergency supply reserves at all 3 distribution centers within 4 hours of the martial law announcement. Citizens broke through the security barriers at the Henderson Avenue facility at 0200 hours. Security footage shows them loading entire pallets of bottled water and non-perishables into vehicles before the building was stripped completely. Current inventory at the Coordination Center: bottled water, 847 units, 72-hour supply for 18 personnel. MREs, 312 units, 5.2 days for current staff. Medical supplies, 67% of standard emergency stock. Potassium iodide tablets, 45 doses remaining. Fuel reserves, 340 gallons diesel, 89 gallons gasoline. The automated supply convoy from the State Emergency Depot failed to arrive at the scheduled 0600 delivery window. GPS tracking shows the convoy stopped 23 miles northeast of our position, directly in the path of the contamination zone. No radio contact established with the convoy personnel. Security perimeter report: Maddox rain. Civilian evacuation compliance has collapsed completely. The recommended evacuation routes are jammed with abandoned vehicles. Interstate 94 westbound shows a 12-mile backup of stationary traffic. Satellite imagery confirms multiple vehicle fires blocking the main arterial roads. At 0415 hours, approximately 200 civilians attempted to breach the Coordination Center's eastern gate. They were demanding access to emergency supplies and radiation detection equipment. The perimeter fence held, but they damaged the external communication array during the attempt. Security cameras recorded individuals with makeshift weapons and crowbars attempting to force entry through the loading dock. Current security measures: all exterior doors sealed and barricaded. Motion sensors activated on all approaches. Armed security posts established at 3 entry points. Emergency lockdown protocols in effect for all personnel. The civilian population is increasingly desperate. Radio chatter on emergency frequencies indicates widespread looting in the commercial districts. Fire department and police response has ceased in the outer zones. Emergency services are consolidating in the central business district, approximately 8 miles from our position. Operational assessment: Rowan Vale. The contamination zone boundary has moved 4.7 miles closer to our facility since the last measurement. Radiation detection equipment shows consistent readings above safe exposure limits for unprotected personnel. The plume density suggests the contamination will reach our perimeter within 6 to 8 hours. Standard evacuation procedures are no longer viable. The recommended evacuation routes are impassable due to traffic congestion and civil disorder. The civilian population has overwhelmed emergency services capacity. Normal coordination with federal and state emergency management has ceased due to communication system failures. I'm implementing survival protocols for the coordination center staff. The facility was designed to serve as a temporary emergency shelter with 72-hour self-sufficiency capability. We're now operating under the assumption that external support will not be available within that time frame. Radiation monitoring data, current readings. Station 7, Northeast Sector 623, R/HR, and climbing. Station 8, North Sector 445, R/HR, stable. Station 9, Northwest Sector 278, R/HR, increasing. Station 10, East Sector 389, R/HR, increasing. Station 11, Southeast Sector 156, R/HR, increasing. Station 12, South Sector 89, R/HR, stable. The contamination pattern indicates the radioactive material is spreading in a southwestern direction, consistent with current wind patterns. Based on the progression rate, our facility will be within the danger zone by 1500 hours. Personnel status. All 18 Coordination Center personnel have been issued potassium iodide tablets. Initial doses administered at 0800 hours. Medical officer confirms no adverse reactions recorded. Radiation dosimeters distributed to all personnel for continuous exposure monitoring. The facility's emergency containment system has been activated. All ventilation systems switched to internal circulation with HEPA filtration. External air intake valves sealed. Emergency lighting systems operational on backup power. Communication attempts. Attempted contact with Federal Emergency Management Agency Regional Headquarters at 0730, 0800, and 0830 hours. No response received on any frequency. State Emergency Services last responded at 0547 hours with a brief transmission confirming widespread system failures before communications ceased. Local emergency services are operating on limited frequencies. Fire Department dispatch indicates they're consolidating operations and ceasing response to areas with radiation readings above 100. R/HR Police dispatch reports similar restrictions. Medical emergency services have established a treatment facility 15 miles southwest of the contamination zone. Survival protocol implementation. The coordination center is now operating as an isolated facility. All external operations have ceased. Personnel are restricted to the interior areas of the building. Decontamination procedures established for any potential exposure incidents. Food and water rationing began at 0900 hours. Daily caloric intake reduced to 1,800 calories per person to extend supply duration. Water consumption limited to 1.5 liters per person per day for drinking, with additional allocation for decontamination procedures. The backup generator system is operating at 78% capacity. Fuel consumption rate indicates 96-hour operational capability at current power requirements. Non-essential electrical systems have been shut down to conserve fuel reserves. Immediate tactical priorities. Maintain facility integrity against radiation exposure. Preserve resource reserves for extended isolation period. Monitor radiation levels for potential safe movement opportunities. Establish communication with external emergency services when possible. Prepare for potential civilian breach attempts as desperation increases. The contamination zone is expanding faster than anticipated. External support appears unavailable. We're now operating under siege conditions with limited resources and no confirmed evacuation timeline. All personnel understand the situation has moved beyond standard emergency response protocols. Next status report scheduled, 1,200 hours. Emergency Coordination Center. Containment status report, 1,347 hours. Facility sealed successfully. All external air intake systems shut down at 1,215 hours when radiation readings at the perimeter reached 145 R/HR. The emergency containment protocol activated automatically, switching to internal air circulation with triple-stage HEPA filtration. Atmospheric pressure inside the facility is now 0.3 psi above external pressure, preventing contaminated air infiltration. The backup generator system has proven essential for maintaining life support operations. Primary power grid failed at 1,156 hours when the electrical substation, 2.1 miles northeast, went offline. Generator fuel consumption rate, 12.7 gallons per hour at current operational load. Total fuel reserves, 327 gallons remaining, providing 25.7 hours of continuous operation. Radiation monitoring, perimeter assessment. External radiation levels have stabilized at dangerous but manageable readings. North entrance, 167 R/HR. East loading dock, 203 R/HR. South emergency exit, 134 R/HR. West vehicle bay, 178 R/HR. The contamination appears to have reached a plateau rather than continuing exponential growth. Wind patterns shifted to southeastern direction at 1,230 hours, dispersing the radioactive cloud away from our immediate area. Current readings suggest the facility is now within the outer edge of the contamination zone rather than receiving direct fallout. Decontamination chamber established in the loading dock airlock using emergency shower systems and radiation detection equipment. Protocol requires 15-minute wash cycle with industrial detergent, followed by radiation screening before personnel can enter the main facility areas. Resource management, extended isolation planning. Esme Ford has completed inventory reassessment for extended shelter operations. Water supply management. Bottled water reserves, 801 units. Consumption reduced by collecting condensation from HVAC systems. Emergency water storage tanks, 1,240 gallons, facilities backup water supply. Daily consumption rate, 47 gallons, includes drinking, cooking, and decontamination procedures. Projected duration, 26.4 days at current usage rates. Food supply rationing. MRE inventory, 298 units remaining. Emergency food stores, 67 cases various preserved foods. Daily caloric distribution, 1,650 calories per person, reduced from emergency standard. Projected duration, 19.7 days for 18 personnel. Medical supply status. Potassium iodide tablets, 31 doses, administered second round at 1,200 hours. Radiation sickness treatment supplies, 78% of emergency stock. Basic medical supplies, 61% of standard inventory. Dosimeter readings, all personnel within acceptable exposure limits. Security protocols, facility defense. Maddox Rain has established 3-tier security perimeter within the facility. Outer perimeter, building shell. All windows sealed with emergency boarding materials. Door access points barricaded with furniture and equipment. Motion sensors monitoring all exterior approaches. Security cameras operational on 6 external positions. Middle perimeter, main corridors. Checkpoint established at central hallway intersection. Emergency lighting reduced to conserve power while maintaining security visibility. Communication equipment repositioned for interior facility coverage. Supply storage areas secured with coded locks. Inner perimeter, operations center. Critical equipment and personnel concentrated in central rooms. Emergency communication systems protected with backup power. Radiation monitoring equipment secured and calibrated. Emergency medical station established with necessary supplies. Civilian activity monitoring. External security cameras show continued civilian movement in the surrounding area despite radiation warnings. Groups of 3 to 8 individuals observed moving between abandoned buildings, apparently scavenging for supplies. Most wear improvised protection, cloth masks, plastic sheeting, household items used as radiation shields. At 1,134 hours, a group of 12 civilians approached the facility's north entrance. They carried signs requesting emergency medical assistance and radiation detection equipment. Security protocol prevented any exterior contact. The group remained at the perimeter for 47 minutes before moving southeast toward the commercial district. Vehicle traffic has ceased completely. Abandoned cars block most street access within a 0.8-mile radius of the facility. Several vehicles show signs of fire damage, likely from electrical system failures caused by electromagnetic pulse effects. Communication status. Radio equipment operational on backup power systems. Monitoring emergency frequencies continuously. Emergency services frequency. Intermittent traffic from locations 15+ miles from contamination zone. FEMA coordination channel. No traffic recorded since 05:47 hours yesterday. Military emergency frequency. Automated distress signals from multiple locations. Amateur radio operators, scattered reports of conditions in uncontaminated areas. Attempted contact with state emergency headquarters at 1200, 1230, and 1300 hours. No responses received. Signal strength indicates transmission capability functional, but no acknowledgement of our broadcasts. Facility systems management. Power distribution. Backup generator. 78% efficiency, normal operating parameters. Emergency lighting. Reduced to 40% standard illumination. HVAC systems. Operating at minimum required capacity for air filtration. Communication equipment. Full power allocation maintained. Non-essential systems. Shut down to conserve fuel. Air quality management. Internal atmosphere. 20.9% oxygen. Normal CO2 levels. HEPA filtration. 99.97% particle removal efficiency confirmed. Positive pressure differential. Maintained at 0.3 psi above external. Air circulation rate. 12 complete air exchanges per hour. Water system operations. Internal plumbing, fully operational. Hot water system, reduced to essential use only. Waste management, functioning normally. Emergency shower systems, available for decontamination procedures. Personnel assignments, survival rotation schedule. 0600 to 1400 hours. Rowan Vale, radiation monitoring and facility systems oversight. Esme Ford, resource inventory and distribution management. Maddox Rain, security monitoring and perimeter assessment. 1400 to 2200 hours. Communications monitoring rotated among qualified personnel. Equipment maintenance assigned to technical specialists. Food preparation and distribution managed by designated staff. 2200 to 0600 hours. Reduced staffing with security watch rotation. Essential monitoring systems maintained. Emergency response team on standby status. Survival routine establishment. Daily operational schedule implemented to maintain facility functionality and personnel effectiveness. 0600, personnel status check and radiation exposure assessment. 0630, resource consumption measurement and allocation. 0700, facility systems inspection and maintenance. 0800, external conditions monitoring and documentation. 1200, midday status assessment and communication attempts. 1800, evening resource distribution and security review. 2100, equipment shutdown for power conservation. Tactical assessment, current position. The facility's emergency systems are functioning within acceptable parameters. Resource reserves provide adequate support for extended isolation period. Security measures are effective against current external threats. Radiation exposure levels remain within safe limits for sheltered personnel. Critical success factors. Backup generator fuel reserves determine operational duration. Water conservation practices extend viable shelter period. Communication equipment enables potential coordination with external forces. Radiation monitoring ensures safe decision-making for future movement. The facility is now operating as designed for emergency shelter conditions. All personnel understand the operational requirements for extended isolation. Systems are stable and resources are managed for maximum duration effectiveness. Emergency Coordination Center, Day 4 post-attack. Status report, critical operations. Filed by Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Water filtration system failure confirmed at 0347 hours. Backup filtration unit showing contamination readings of 847 roentgens per hour, well beyond safe consumption levels. The primary intake valve must have been compromised when the radiation plume passed through yesterday evening. Esme Ford's calculations show our bottled water reserves will last exactly 72 hours at current consumption rates with 3 personnel. Switching to emergency rationing protocol immediately. Each person allocated 1.2 liters per day, barely adequate for basic physiological needs in current stress conditions. The decontamination protocols alone require 4 liters per person per procedure. We'll need to modify cleaning procedures to dry decontamination methods only. Maddox Rain reports multiple perimeter breaches during the night. 7 separate incidents of contaminated civilians attempting to force entry through the emergency exits. His security assessment indicates these weren't coordinated attacks. Desperate individuals seeking shelter after their vehicles failed or they ran out of fuel. The radiation exposure symptoms are becoming visible now. Skin burns, vomiting, disorientation. One breach succeeded. A woman and 2 children made it through the Northwest Service entrance before Maddox could secure the area. They're showing advanced radiation sickness. Probably took shelter in a contaminated building for the past 2 days. The woman is unconscious. Children are experiencing severe dehydration and radiation burns across their faces and arms. Esme Ford administered our remaining potassium iodide tablets to the children. That depletes our pharmaceutical reserves entirely. The woman needs immediate medical attention we cannot provide. No hospitals are operational within a 100-kilometer radius, according to the last radio communication we received 18 hours ago. Current supply inventory shows critical shortages across every category. Food supplies, 23 MREs remaining, 8 cans of preserved meat, 12 energy bars. At current consumption, this provides 4.2 days of nutrition for 3 adults and 2 children. Caloric intake will drop to survival minimums. Medical supplies, bandages for 7 more dressing changes, antiseptic for 3 applications, 1 dose of pain medication. No antibiotics, no quarto fluides, no surgical supplies. Fuel reserves, generator diesel tank at 31% capacity. At current power consumption rate, we have 38 hours of electricity remaining. After that, all radiation monitoring equipment goes offline, communication systems fail, and lighting systems shut down. Ammunition inventory. Maddox Rain reports 47 rounds remaining for the service pistol, 23 rounds for the emergency rifle. Given the increasing desperation of contaminated survivors, these supplies may be needed for perimeter defense. The radiation readings outside have stabilized at dangerous, but not immediately lethal levels. 127 roentgens per hour at ground level, dropping to 89 roentgens per hour at the second floor level. Still too high for extended exposure, but short-duration activities might be possible with proper protection. Maddox attempted to reach the emergency supply depot, located 6 blocks northeast of our position. The route requires crossing 3 open areas with minimal radiation shielding. He turned back after the first intersection when his dosimeter registered 340 roentgens accumulated in less than 4 minutes. At that exposure rate, the round trip would result in potentially fatal radiation poisoning. Communication attempts continued to fail. The emergency radio frequency remains dead. Commercial radio broadcasts stopped 2 days ago. The satellite communication uplink shows hardware failure, probably from electromagnetic interference during the initial attack. We are completely isolated from any external coordination or support. The contaminated woman died at 1,247 hours. Her 2 children, ages approximately 7 and 10, are now our responsibility. They require food, water, and medical attention we cannot adequately provide. Their radiation exposure levels are unknown, but certainly significant based on their physical condition. Esme Ford is modifying our resource allocation calculations to account for 5 people instead of 3. The children require proportionally more water due to their smaller body mass and higher metabolic rates. Food requirements increase by approximately 40%. Medical needs are now critical rather than manageable. Tactical assessment. Current defensive position remains secure, but increasingly untenable. The Coordination Center was designed for emergency operations lasting 48 to 72 hours maximum. We are now entering day 4 with no prospect of external assistance or supply resupply. The radiation environment outside prevents meaningful scavenging or resource gathering. Standard decontamination procedures are impossible due to water shortage. Any person leaving the facility risks severe radiation exposure that could incapacitate them within hours. The children represent both a humanitarian obligation and a tactical liability. They cannot assist with defense, consume resources we cannot spare, and require medical attention we cannot provide. However, abandoning them is not operationally acceptable. Immediate action requirements. Implement severe water rationing, 0.8 liters per adult, 0.6 liters per child daily. Reduce generator power consumption to essential systems only, radiation monitoring and communication equipment only. Establish 24-hour security watch rotation to prevent further perimeter breaches. Inventory all non-obvious resource sources, cleaning supplies that might be potable, emergency equipment that might contain nutrition. Critical decision point. Within 48 hours we must either Attempt dangerous supply retrieval mission through contaminated zone. Relocate to alternate facility with potential resource access. Maintain current position until resources are completely exhausted. Each option carries significant risk of casualty or mission failure. The radiation environment eliminates most tactical options available during standard emergency operations. The children's condition is deteriorating. They need medical attention that requires either evacuation to a functional medical facility or access to pharmaceutical supplies we do not possess. Time remaining for meaningful intervention is measured in hours, not days. Equipment status. Radiation monitoring equipment functional, but showing calibration drift. Readings may be inaccurate by 15 to 20%. Communication equipment operational, but no responding signals detected on any frequency. Perimeter security systems at 67% functionality due to power conservation measures. Personnel status. All adult personnel showing early signs of radiation exposure, fatigue, mild nausea, headaches. Symptoms remain within acceptable operational limits. Children's symptoms are progressing rapidly. Severe dehydration, skin lesions, intermittent fever. Recommendation. Immediate tactical planning required for resource acquisition mission. Current trajectory leads to mission failure through resource depletion within 72 hours. Risk assessment indicates supply retrieval mission has 40 to 60% probability of success depending on route selection and timing. Alternative recommendation. Attempt to establish contact with other survivors who might have access to medical supplies needed for children's treatment. This requires expanded communication attempts and potential signal broadcasting that could compromise our position. End status report, Day 4. Emergency Coordination Center, Day 5 post-attack. Status report, Critical Intelligence Update. Filed by Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Radiation decay pattern analysis breakthrough achieved at 0523 hours. By plotting the hourly readings from our monitoring equipment over the past 96 hours, I've identified a predictable fluctuation cycle in ground-level contamination. Readings dropped to 64 to 71 Roentgens per hour during a consistent 47-minute window every 8.3 hours. The pattern correlates with atmospheric pressure variations and wind direction shifts. During high-pressure periods, radioactive particles settle closer to ground level. When low-pressure systems move through, particles become suspended at higher altitudes, reducing ground-level exposure by approximately 43%. Next safe movement windows. 0847 to 0934 hours today. 1721 to 1808 hours today. 0154 to 0241 hours tomorrow. This intelligence changes our tactical situation significantly. Extended outdoor movement becomes possible during these windows with proper protective equipment and route planning. Maddox Rain conducted detailed facility assessment and located the underground maintenance tunnel access I remembered from the emergency management blueprints. The service corridor connects to the Metropolitan Utility Tunnel network. Access panel is located behind the emergency generator housing, secured with the maintenance code sequence I retrieved from the building operations manual. Tunnel system maps confirm direct underground route to the Federal Emergency Supply Depot at coordinates 41.2847 degrees north, 87.6369 degrees west, exactly 1.2 kilometers northeast through contamination-free underground passages. The depot was established for scenarios exactly like this one. Underground route assessment. The utility tunnel maintains consistent 12-foot clearance with emergency lighting powered by independent electrical grid. Ventilation systems are isolated from surface air intake. Radiation readings inside the access tunnel measured 0.7 Roentgens per hour, within acceptable exposure limits for extended operations. Tunnel route passes beneath 3 major contaminated surface zones that would require 15 to 20 minutes of dangerous exposure if traversed at ground level. Underground passage eliminates this radiation exposure entirely while providing secure access to emergency resources. Esme Ford calculated supply requirements for depot retrieval mission. Medical supplies for radiation sickness treatment. Water purification tablets and portable filtration units. High-calorie emergency rations for 14-day supply. Additional potassium iodide for ongoing radiation protection. Fuel containers for generator extension. Depot inventory intelligence. Federal emergency protocols mandate each metropolitan depot contains 500 gallons potable water in sealed containers. Medical supplies including 4 fluids, antibiotics, pain management pharmaceuticals. 200 MREs with 3,200 calorie daily nutrition capacity. Radiation detection equipment and protective gear. Communication equipment including satellite uplink capability. Generator fuel supplies, diesel and gasoline reserves. This represents a complete solution to our current resource crisis with sufficient supplies for extended operations. Communication breakthrough. At 0634 hours, ESME-4 detected intermittent signal transmission on emergency frequency 162.400 MHz. Signal strength indicates source approximately 15 to 18 kilometers southeast of our position. Transmission pattern suggests Military Evacuation Coordination Center attempting to establish contact with survivor groups. Message fragments received. Evacuation point coordinates 41.7589 degrees north, 87.8847 degrees west. Military escort available. Radiation screening required. Transport capacity for civilian survivors. This confirms operational military presence and organized evacuation procedures. The coordinates indicate evacuation point at former O'Hare Airport facility, beyond current contaminated zone boundaries. Tactical intelligence summary. 3 critical discoveries fundamentally alter our operational capabilities. Predictable radiation exposure windows enable surface movement during specific time periods. Underground tunnel access provides contamination-free route to emergency supply depot. Military evacuation coordination confirms external rescue operations and evacuation destination. Mission planning parameters. Supply retrieval mission. Duration: 3.2 hours underground travel plus 1.1 hours depot inventory and loading. Personnel: Maddox Rain, Tactical Security, and ESME-4 Supply Logistics. Equipment: radiation detection instruments, transport containers, emergency communication device. Risk assessment: low radiation exposure, minimal security threats underground. Evacuation preparation. Distance to evacuation point: 23.7 kilometers through mixed contaminated and clear zones. Transport requirements: vehicle capable of carrying 5 personnel plus emergency supplies. Timing: coordinate with low radiation windows for surface travel segments. Medical considerations: children require 4 fluid support during transport. Critical discovery vehicle access. Underground depot includes vehicle maintenance facility with emergency response vehicles. Federal protocol requires each depot to maintain operational transport capacity for evacuation scenarios. This solves our transportation challenge for reaching the military evacuation point. Immediate action plan. Phase 1, next 6-hour supply retrieval mission during 0847 to 0934 safe window. Maddox and ESME access depot through underground route. Priority items: medical supplies for children, water purification, communication equipment. Secondary items: food supplies, fuel, protective equipment. Phase 2, 12 to 18 hours medical stabilization. Administer 4 fluids and radiation treatment pharmaceuticals to children. Establish communication with Military Evacuation Center. Confirm transport capacity and medical support availability. Phase 3, 18 to 36 hours evacuation execution. Load emergency vehicle with personnel and critical supplies. Coordinate departure timing with radiation-safe windows. Navigate to military evacuation point using contamination avoidance routes. Equipment readiness. Current operational equipment inventory sufficient for mission requirements. Radiation monitoring devices functional and calibrated. Communication equipment operational with extended battery capacity. Personal protective equipment adequate for underground operations. Personnel status update. Adult personnel radiation symptoms remain stable, fatigue and mild nausea, but operational capability maintained. Children's condition has stabilized but requires immediate medical intervention available at emergency depot. The 7-year-old shows signs of severe dehydration, requiring 4 fluid replacement. The 10-year-old is experiencing intermittent fever and skin lesions consistent with acute radiation syndrome. Both children remain conscious and responsive, but need pharmaceutical intervention within 12-hour window. Risk assessment revision. Mission success probability increased from 40 to 60% to 75 to 85% based on underground route access and predictable radiation patterns. Primary risks now involve equipment failure during underground operations, depot access complications, security systems, structural damage, timing coordination for evacuation rendezvous. Secondary risks significantly reduced. Radiation exposure during supply retrieval, eliminated through underground route. Resource scarcity, resolved through depot access. Communication isolation, resolved through military contact. Strategic advantage. The combination of underground facility access, predictable radiation windows, and confirmed military evacuation represents complete tactical solution to survival scenario. Professional emergency management protocols and facility knowledge provided critical advantages not available to untrained survivors. Final status assessment. Current position, tactically advantageous with clear mission parameters. Resource outlook, resolution available through depot access. Evacuation prospects, confirmed with military coordination. Personnel condition, stable for adults, treatable for children with depot medical supplies. Next action sequence, 0800 hours, final mission briefing and equipment preparation. 0847 hours, begin underground approach to emergency depot. 1030 hours, depot inventory and resource loading. 1200 hours, return with medical supplies and communication equipment. 1300 hours, begin medical treatment and military coordination. Mission parameters established. Tactical intelligence breakthrough enables transition from survival maintenance to evacuation execution. End status report, Day 5. Classification, mission critical, execution phase. Rowan Vale, Emergency Response Coordinator. Metropolitan Emergency Management Agency. Operational status, breakthrough intelligence achieved. Emergency Coordination Center, status report. Day 8, hour 0347. Radiation level, 8.7 R/HR surface, 0.2 R/HR underground. Personnel, 3 opérationnel. Underground access confirmed viable. Radiation suits distributed according to protocol. Movement initiation in 30 minutes. Esme Ford completed final supply inventory. 47 water bottles secured in transport packs. 12 MRE units distributed among team. Potassium iodide tablets verified. Sufficient dosage for 72-hour exposure window. Emergency medical kit includes Geiger counter, dosimeter readings current. All equipment sealed in contamination-resistant containers per radiation safety standards. Maddox Rain established perimeter security around tunnel access point 7. 3 civilian groups detected attempting to follow evacuation route. Security barriers deployed at checkpoints Alpha through Delta. Alternative routing confirmed through underground maintenance corridors. Military extraction coordinates verified. Grid reference 847.432.891. Evacuation point Zulu. Surface radiation measurements indicate lethal exposure within 4 minutes without protective equipment. Underground route provides 97% radiation reduction based on concrete shielding calculations. Total transit time estimated at 47 minutes to reach military perimeter. Hour 0430, movement phase initiated. Decontamination procedures completed. Radiation suits sealed, breathing apparatus activated. Dosimeter reagings Basilini, Rovan Vale 2.1 REM, Esme Ford 1.8 REM, Maddox Rain 2.3 REM. Maximum allowable exposure for transit. Additional 15 REM before evacuation required. Underground access achieved through maintenance shaft C7. Steel ladder descent 42 feet to service tunnel level. Emergency lighting functional on backup power. Tunnel atmosphere measured. Oxygen 19.2%, carbon dioxide 0.8%, radioactive particulate count within acceptable parameters. Esme Ford monitoring supply distribution during movement. Water consumption rate calculated at 0.3 liters per hour per person in current conditions. Food reserves adequate for planned transit duration plus 6-hour contingency buffer. Medical supplies accessible through external suit pouches. Maddox Rain maintaining rear security protocols. Civilian infiltration detected at checkpoint Alpha, security barrier holding position. Alternative access routes sealed using emergency lockdown procedures. Radio communication with military coordination intermittent due to underground positioning. Hour 0515, midpoint assessment. Transit progress 52% complete. Radiation exposure levels, Rowan Vale 4.7 rem total, Esme Ford 4.1 rem total, Maddox Rain 5.2 rem total. All readings within operational parameters. Underground route maintaining radiation protection effectiveness. Technical malfunction detected. Tunnel ventilation system operating at 34% capacity. Air quality measurements show gradual increase in carbon dioxide concentration. Breathing apparatus reserves calculated at 2 hours 14 minutes remaining. Acceleration of movement pace recommended. Esme Ford reports equipment functionality at 89%. One water container seal compromised during ladder descent. Contents secured in backup container. Emergency medical supplies verified intact. Geiger counter providing continuous environmental monitoring. Navigation checkpoint reached. Underground map coordinates confirmed accurate. Distance to surface emergence, 1.7 kilometers. Military evacuation perimeter radio contact established intermittently. Extraction team confirmed standing by at designated coordinates. Hour 0547, final phase execution. Maddox Rain identifies security concern. Civilian group breached checkpoint Delta, following evacuation route approximately 12 minutes behind current position. Military coordination notified of unauthorized personnel in evacuation corridor. Security protocols require immediate pace acceleration. Surface emergence procedures initiated. Decontamination station established at exit point using emergency shower kit. Radiation measurement of surface environment. 12.4R/HR, requiring rapid movement to military perimeter. Maximum surface exposure time, 7 minutes before exceeding safe dosage limits. Esme Ford verifies supply transport readiness. All containers sealed and secured for surface transit. Emergency medical kit positioned for immediate access. Water reserves adequate for final movement phase. Personnel equipment functioning within operational parameters. Hour 0601 surface operations. Emergency exit achieved. Surface radiation suit integrity confirmed. Immediate movement toward military perimeter initiated. Distance to evacuation point Zulu, 847 meters across contaminated terrain. Military vehicles visible at extraction coordinates. Personnel in full radiation protection equipment confirm identity verification procedures. Decontamination protocols prepared for civilian processing upon arrival at secure perimeter. Maddox Rain maintains security during surface movement. Civilian infiltrators emerged from underground access, requesting evacuation assistance. Military policy requires documentation, but prohibits unauthorized personnel transport. Security perimeter established around official evacuation team. Radiation exposure accelerating. 12 meter reagings, Rowan Vale 9.3 REM, Esme Ford 8.7 REM, Maddox Rain 10.1 REM. All personnel approaching maximum allowable exposure thresholds. Immediate extraction required upon reaching military perimeter. Hour 0614, military perimeter achieved. Evacuation point Zulu reached. Military decontamination procedures initiated immediately. Radiation suits removed under controlled conditions. Personnel shower decontamination completed according to standard protocols. Medical evaluation confirms radiation exposure within survivable parameters. Esme Ford transferred emergency supplies to military logistics coordination. Supply manifest documented for integration with military resource management systems. Water and food reserves contribute to evacuation center operational capacity. Maddox Rain briefed military security on civilian infiltration activities. Underground access points identified for potential security closure. Tactical intelligence regarding contaminated zone activities provided for ongoing military operations. Professional radiation safety protocols successfully enabled survival during hazardous transit. Underground route access codes proved essential for contamination avoidance. Emergency supply management maintained operational capability throughout evacuation sequence. Final status report, hour 0630. Evacuation execution completed successfully. Personnel radiation exposure levels documented for medical monitoring. Maximum exposure 10.1 rem, while below acute radiation syndrome threshold. Military medical evaluation confirms no immediate health concerns requiring treatment. Equipment accountability. 94% of emergency supplies successfully transported. Radiation detection equipment transferred to military operations for continued environmental monitoring. Communication systems integrated with military coordination networks. Operational continuity achieved. Emergency response expertise available for ongoing military evacuation operations. Resource management protocols established for evacuated civilian population. Tactical coordination capabilities maintained for continued security operations. Threat assessment. Surface contamination remains at lethal levels. Underground route network compromised by civilian infiltration. Military perimeter secure with adequate radiation protection systems operational. Next phase. Integration with military evacuation center operations. Continued radiation monitoring protocols. Resource distribution coordination for displaced population management. Military evacuation center, forward operating base Delta. Day 9, hour 0, 800. Radiation level, 0.3R/HR, within acceptable operational parameters. Personnel status, 3 integrated into military operations. Evacuated population, 2,847 civilians under military coordination. Emergency response protocols successfully integrated with military command structure. Rowan Vale assigned as Radiation Safety Coordinator for Civilian Population Management. Professional expertise in emergency coordination proving essential for ongoing operations. Medical evaluation completed. Radiation exposure levels documented. All personnel within acceptable limits for continued operational duty. Potassium iodide treatment protocols established for civilian population, showing elevated exposure readings. Emergency medical supplies contributed to military medical unit inventory. Operational infrastructure assessment. Military facilities provide adequate radiation protection for long-term operations. Concrete construction and lead line sections reduce ambient radiation to manageable levels. Ventilation systems equipped with HEPA filtration, maintaining air quality within safety parameters. Esme Ford integrated with military logistics coordination. Supply distribution protocols established for evacuated civilian population. Water purification systems operational, capacity 15,000 gallons per day. Food distribution network serving 3,200 personnel, including military and civilian evacuees. Resource inventory management system operational, using military tracking protocols. Power generation stable through military diesel generators. Fuel reserves calculated at 47 days operational capacity at current consumption rates. Emergency backup systems tested and verified functional. Communication networks operational with regional military coordination centers. Radiation monitoring operations. Environmental monitoring stations established at perimeter positions Alpha through Hotel. Radiation detection equipment operational 24-hour rotation. Current readings indicate contamination plume moving northeast, reducing threat to current operational area. Maddox Rain coordinating security operations with military police units. Perimeter security established using combined civilian emergency response and military tactical protocols. Civilian population movement managed through checkpoint system. Unauthorized access attempts reduced by 73% through integrated security procedures. Decontamination stations operational at all facility entry points. Personnel monitoring protocols required dosimeter readings every 4 hours. Contaminated materials disposal procedures established using military hazardous waste protocols. Civilian population management. Housing assignments completed for 2,847 evacuated personnel. Temporary shelter capacity adequate for current population with 15% expansion capability available. Sanitation systems operational within military engineering specifications. Medical screening identified 147 civilians requiring radiation exposure monitoring. Treatment protocols established using available medical supplies and military medical equipment. No cases of acute radiation syndrome detected in current population. Food distribution schedule operational. 3 meals daily for civilian population. Nutritional requirements calculated at 2,100 calories per person per day. Current supply levels adequate for 32 days without resupply. Military logistics coordination, requesting supply convoy from uncontaminated regions. Operational protocols established. Daily radiation monitoring routine implemented. Personnel rotation through monitoring stations ensures continuous environmental assessment. Early warning systems operational for any increase in contamination levels requiring evacuation procedures. ESME Ford managing supply request procedures with military logistics networks. Requisition forms established for civilian population needs including medical supplies, clothing, and personal hygiene items. Inventory tracking system integrated with military supply management databases. Communication protocols established with regional evacuation centers. Information sharing regarding contamination levels, population management procedures, and resource requirements. Military coordination networks provide connection to federal emergency management systems. Security and access control. Maddox Rain established security protocols for civilian population movement within facility perimeters. Access control system implemented using military identification procedures. Visitor authorization protocols established for family reunification requests. Perimeter patrol schedules coordinated with military security units. Civilian emergency response expertise providing valuable intelligence regarding potential security concerns from contaminated zones. Tactical coordination protocols established for any required expansion of secure perimeter. Vehicle decontamination procedures operational for any supply convoys arriving from potentially contaminated areas. Personnel screening protocols ensure no unauthorized access to facility operations. Resource management systems. Water quality testing performed every 6 hours using available testing equipment. Purification systems maintain water quality within acceptable standards for long-term consumption. Backup purification equipment available if primary systems require maintenance. Waste management protocols established using military sanitation procedures. Contaminated waste disposal coordinated with military hazardous materials units. Recycling procedures implemented where materials testing confirms safety for reuse. Medical supply inventory management coordinated with military medical units. Emergency medical protocols established for any radiation-related health issues. Medical equipment calibration performed daily to ensure accurate readings. Long-term operational planning. Rowanvale coordinating with military leadership regarding long-term civilian population management. Current facility capacity adequate for extended operations pending contamination zone assessment. Expansion protocols available if evacuated population increases require additional resources. Environmental monitoring data indicates radiation levels in contaminated zones decreasing at predicted rates. Estimated timeline for safe return to metropolitan areas. 18 months minimum based on current contamination measurements. Alternative settlement planning required for displaced population. Professional expertise in emergency coordination proving valuable for military operations. Integration of civilian emergency response procedures with military tactical operations, enhancing overall operational effectiveness. Status assessment, hour 1200. Operational continuity achieved for evacuated population management. Military coordination providing adequate security and resource management for current requirements. Civilian expertise successfully integrated with military operations. Radiation monitoring systems operational and providing continuous environmental assessment. No immediate threats detected requiring evacuation or enhanced protective measures. Current operational status sustainable for extended period. Supply management protocols established ensuring adequate resources for civilian population. Military logistics coordination functional for ongoing supply requirements. Emergency medical capabilities adequate for current population health maintenance. Ongoing operations protocol. Daily operational briefings established with military command structure. Radiation safety procedures require constant monitoring and adjustment based on environmental conditions. Civilian population management protocols operational for indefinite duration. Emergency response expertise available for any required tactical operations. Professional knowledge of emergency coordination procedures valuable resource for military planning operations. Operational readiness maintained for any changes in threat assessment. Vigilance protocols established. Contamination zone remains dangerous requiring continued monitoring. Population safety dependent on maintained operational procedures and continued resource management effectiveness. Final assessment. Operational continuity established successfully. Military integration complete. Civilian population management functional for extended operations. Radiation threat managed through established protocols requiring ongoing vigilance.